And just like that, the 2024 PLL regular season has come to an end, and you know what that means. It's time for my personal favorite and one of the most controversial parts of the season. The discussion officially begins for who will take home the end of season awards. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. My name, as always, is Thief Strings, and today we have a bit of a different video for you guys. I want to go over both my personal picks for who I think should win the end of season awards and my predictions for who the PLL will actually pick, because oftentimes I feel like that kind of concept gets confused between my personal picks and what I think actually will happen. So I'm just gonna give you both. This has been, once again, another fantastic season in the PLL. So much fresh talent, and the league just keeps getting better and better, both on the field and off the field in terms of their media, the talent on the field. But year over year, the PLL just keeps constantly improving, and I'm so happy to see how long we've come in the last 5 years. On the field, at least, this is somewhat of a transitionary year for the PLL because there's a lot of old vets, a lot of old stars who either are declining, who just retired, who aren't as good anymore. And as much as old talent is being phased out, there is loads of new talent coming in the league. We know how stacked this year's draft class was, but even from the previous 2 or 3 draft classes, those guys are still super young and really coming into their own this season. But the old guard is still putting up a fight. Guys like Marcus Holman, Colin, Rob Pinnell, they're still alive and kicking. But certainly getting help from their younger teammates. So in this video, we have 14 different awards to go over. Yes, 14, it's quite a lot. We have the Humanitarian Award, the Sportsmanship Award, the Leadership Award, the Teammate Award, the Coach of the Year, Rookie of the Year, Hard Hat of the Year, or Hard Hat Player of the Year, LSM of the Year, Faceoff Man of the Year, Goalie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Middie of the Year, Attackman of the Year, and MVP, of course. I'm gonna be real with you guys, I have no idea what to say about the first 4 of those awards, the Leadership, Humanitarian, Teammate, and Sportsmanship Award, because I'm not in the locker rooms. You know, obviously anyone of us fans don't really know what's going on with those. You kind of got to be there to judge that, but I'm still going to give somewhat of a prediction, somewhat of an idea about my thoughts on the recipients for that one. So I really don't want to waste any time in this video. We have a lot of those different awards to go over, so let's jump right into it. So firstly, the Welles Crowther Humanitarian Award. I hope I said that guy's name right, because he is a pretty significant figure in the lacrosse community. If you guys don't know, but you guys probably remember the bandana 9/11 lacrosse kind of campaign thing that came together. That's this guy, Welles Crowther. He obviously used to play lacrosse, and during when he was a firefighter, saved up to 18 lives on that day, but unfortunately tragically lost his own life. Huge shout out to him. Obviously his name's on this award for a big significant reason, but I wish I'd give more details on why these nominees were selected and who I think will actually win it. This is a part of the problem with the PLL. They don't disclose a bunch of information about the players, about the activities. It's really not their fault. It's a lot of the media outlets. They just don't cover lacrosse, which is why I'm here. But still, I only had so much time to do research for this video, and I just don't know what these guys did to earn this nominee. Not that I'm saying they didn't do anything, I just literally do not know what got them selected. I couldn't really find anything on it either. So I'm really just going based off what I've seen in the past and what I think I remember hearing mentioned in the posts that I think I've seen about them and their humanitarian efforts. Anyway, the nominees for this one are Romar Dennis and Kai Montgomery, both of the California Redwoods, Brett Makar, and Mike Sisselberger. Now, with Romar Dennis and Kai Montgomery, I don't have any hard evidence or sources or links to give to you guys about their efforts, but I do remember seeing a lot from both of them about their work with young lacrosse players, especially in communities where lacrosse isn't that popular, trying to grow the game, promote the sport in those type of areas. And for Nakai specifically, I'm pretty sure I've seen him do a lot of stuff with minority communities, you know, young black players, young Hispanic players, things of that nature. When it comes to Brett Makar, I have to be super real with you guys. I have no idea what he does in terms of humanitarian things. I couldn't find anything in my research either. Maybe I just wasn't looking hard enough. Someone please let me know. I would love to give these guys their flowers and appreciate them for their efforts. And Mike Sisselberg, again, don't know too much, but I do always see videos on Instagram of him doing youth clinics, of him helping out with kids, doing some volunteer work, so that's great. But my personal pick for the recipient of this award is going to have to go to either Romar Dennis or Nakai Montgomery for no reason other than the fact that I'm a Redwoods fan. My prediction, though, for who the PLL will actually select is going to be Romar Dennis, simply because he's probably the most exciting player to watch out of these 3. He's got that shake and bake. He can drop those 2-point bombs. They're kind of trying to keep Romar relevant as that 2-point shooter, even though he does lead the league in 2-point goals this season, but that all came from like 2 games, and he didn't really play the best this year. So I think they're going to give it to him just to give Romar some more attention. I have no idea, though. Next, the Dave Huntley Sportsmanship Award. This award is given to the player who demonstrates excellent sportsmanship. The nominees for this one are Piper Bong, Matt DeLuca, JT Giles-Harris, and Miles Jones. This is another one where I really don't know what to say about this because I don't know who's the best sportsman. I'm not in the field with these guys. I'm not in the locker room. I'm not in the group chats. I have no idea. I don't even know what this is really trying to select. All I know is that it's not going to be Miles Jones, only because he likes to get in dudes' faces and let them know when he scores. But my personal pick has to be Jack Rowlett.
Underneath the defender, he bounces one. Play.
Obviously, I'm kidding. That guy has the least sportsmanship out of probably any player in the league. I'm going to have to go with JT Giles-Harris simply because he's a defender. I'm a defender. I told you I don't know what to do for these first four. I'm sorry. The Brendan Looney Leadership Award. The nominees for this one are Tom Schreiber, Marcus Holman, and Matt Dunn. Tom Schreiber, obviously a big veteran presence, big lead by example type of guy, especially when we're talking about on the field antics. Always has good vibes, never really getting in trouble, never really getting these egregious penalties like some of the other guys. He is a huge locker room presence for the Archers. A lot of that same can be said for Marcus Holman. I feel like he leads by example a little bit more than Tom Schreiber just because he's a bit more of an outgoing, extroverted guy. I wouldn't call him like a loud person, but you know, he's always talking, he's always speaking up, he's always got something to say. Tom Schreiber keeps to himself just a little bit more than Marcus Holman, a little bit more animated. And then we've also got Matt Dunn, who's been the defensive QB of the best team in the league, the Whipsnakes. Well, the overall best organization in the league, the Whipsnakes, for a long time. He's a Maryland guy. He's got that great lacrosse tradition. Typical defender, that QB type, the field general. And I am going to have to go with Matt Dunn on this one because at this point in his career, he is a vet. He always keeps the defense looking locked in, looking organized. Always you hear him on the hot mics barking out orders. But I think the PLL will actually select Tom Schreiber only because of the fact that he had that injury that he picked up late in the season. He's going to miss the postseason, but I predict he'll still be on the sideline for his squad. He'll still be trying to encourage them, still show some of those great leader-like tendencies. Next up, the Teammate of the Year Award. And this is another one. We don't know much about the team dynamics. We don't know what's going on in the locker rooms. We don't know who's picking up the guys from the airport, organizing things in the group chat, organizing the team bonding events. So I'm going to run through this one again. We've got Ryan Ambler, who I believe was probably selected because he was a big piece of this Archers team 2 and 3 years ago, but they just kept adding talent and adding talent, adding talent. So he, of course, had to take a reduced role, and he took that reduced role perfectly in stride. Never complains, still shows up, still goes hard whenever he gets an opportunity. Austin Kaut, we've seen a lot of him this season in the PLL because he's had to sub in quite a number of times for Blaze Reardon, the #1 goalie in the league. And obviously, stepping in as a backup goalie is not easy. It's like being a backup quarterback in football. He didn't have much notice either of the times when he went in because Blaze started the game and he just had to jump in the middle of the quarter, but he took it in stride too and played fantastic whenever he was called upon with a great attitude, really led his team to a couple really nice games. And finally, Cole Kirst, who was actually last year's winner of this award, and I couldn't really give you a great reason for why he's on this list. I think he's just a good guy overall, which is great, obviously. My personal pick, who I actually want to be the winner of this award, has to be Austin Kaut, really just because out of any of these guys, he had the most tangible, most instant impact when he was inserted in the game. The qualities that he got him to be the Teammate of the Year nominee were the most visual. You felt it when watching the games. He came in and stepped up. I also predict that the PLL will select Austin Kaut, but I wouldn't be surprised if Kirst got it again this year. Why? I don't know. I kind of just feel like the whole Kirst family has some kind of underlying, under the table connection with the greater lacrosse, like higher ups who kind of like run the show a little bit. I have nothing to back that up. It's just kind of a gut feeling I have that their family is kind of, you know, in cahoots with some big important people in the lacrosse world. That's a conspiracy. Let's move on. All right, so now we're into the awards where I actually have information on these players and individuals who are being nominated, and I can give a real opinion rather than just kind of grasping at straws and assuming why they got nominated. The Dick Egdell Coach of the Year. There were 3 coaches nominated for this one. First, we've got the Atlas head coach, Mike Pressler. Last season, the Atlas were 2-8 with a -20 goal difference. One of the worst teams in the league. Actually, the second worst in the league, if we're going to be specific. This year, however, they are easily the best team in the league. They went on a record of 7-3 plus 27 goal differential. Their team was absolutely clicking the entire season. At times, it looked like they were just playing backyard ball. That's how easy they were making some of these wins against some of these teams look this year. They were easily the most organized team, easily had the tightest knit game plan. You had guys breaking records like Jeff Pete. The offense was just flowing. It was beautiful. I'd say they were the most fun team to watch this year. Next nomination is Denver Outlaws head coach Tim Sudan, who was the 2022 winner of this award. He's been given the job of garnering in the new generation of the Denver Outlaws into professional professional lacrosse. Big pressure on him to fill those shoes. Denver's a big lacrosse city. They show out. The Outlaws are a historic franchise, and all of that has been placed onto his shoulders. Especially the pressure is mounted even more when you think about the fact that the Chrome last year, what they used to be called, were by far the worst team in the league. I'd say they were the worst team in the history of the PLL, maybe even the MLL too. Last year they went 1-9 with a -38 goal differential. That's disgusting. That's really bad. This year, however, they were 5-5, 500 with only a -4 goal differential. So a massive improvement from them this year under Tim Sudan. Even more impressive when you realize this turnaround happened because of mostly young guys. It's a lot of rookies, second, third year players that Tim Sudan has at his disposal. Not really vets with strong instincts, so that makes it even more impressive for him. However, they were not really that consistent this year. They had really high highs and really low lows. I made a video about their game against the Atlas. Yes, the Atlas are the best team in the league, but they got blown out by them. It was ridiculous how bad they played in that game. And finally, we have the Maryland Whipsnakes coach, Jim Stagnita, who interestingly, despite being probably the most decorated PLL head coach in terms of overall record, championships, things like that, he hasn't won the Coach of the Year award ever, which is pretty crazy. I like to refer to this guy as the Bill Belichick of the PLL, just because the Whipsnakes are the best organization. He's been with the team for a long time. And this year was a bit of a transitionary year for the Whipsnakes as well. Slightly, it was a little bit last year too, but they went all out in the rebuild this year. But somehow got good results instantly. They didn't have to tank. They didn't have to sit at the bottom of the leaderboard for a while. They look great with the new mix of young talent, even with a lot of their vets leaving the team or retiring, just like Michael Earhart, Drew Schneider, some of those other guys too. Last year, they were 4-6 with a 0 goal differential, which really isn't that bad. This year, they get 2 more wins, 6-4 with a +11. Those stats don't really do it justice though with how much better they were playing this year, especially towards the end of the season. They really started playing well together at the end of the year and look poised for success both in this postseason and in seasons going forward. My personal pick for this has to be Mike Pressler. The Atlas have just been playing out of their mind this year, switching things up, going from almost the bottom of the standings to the #1 team in the league this year. They passed the eye test, they passed the statistics test. I don't know how Mike Pressler doesn't win this, other than the fact that I think the PLL actually will maybe potentially give this to Jim Stagnita, only because I don't know how this guy has not won this award yet. I think the PLL might feel the pressure a little bit from him. I feel like he's a bit of a politicker, and they had a really good turnaround this year. They were in a tough spot, somewhat quasi rebuilding, but it wasn't even a rebuild. They figured it out real fast. That's why I think Jim Stagnita has a really good shot winning this as well. But Mike Pressler, my personal pick, Jim Stagnita, is who I think they will actually go with. All right, the good stuff, the individual on-field awards. First of all, we've got the Rookie of the Year award, which this award might be the most contested award of this season, and for sure in terms of just the Rookie of the Year award, this is the tightest this race has ever been, ever. If any one of these guys was present in another draft class, they probably would have just walked away with Rookie of the Year. So we actually have 5 nominations for this one. First, the LSM from the Atlas, Tyler Carpenter. He was #1 in the league for non-faceoff guys in terms of ground balls with 41. He caused 6 caused turnovers, had 7 points this year, which included 2 2-point goals and 2 1-point goals as well. He, of course, was a part of the amazing Atlas team this year, just like the next selection on this list, Liam Entman. Now, Liam Entman only played 6 games this season compared to most other players who played the full 10. He, however, had the second best save percentage of any goalie in the league. Yeah, you heard that right. As a rookie, his save percentage was 58.7, only behind Blaze Reardon, I do believe. He had 71 saves, which I'll remind you again, he only played 6 games. That equates to 11.8 saves per game and 11.1 goals allowed. Next up on the Maryland Whipsnakes, probably the steal of the draft and most surprising player, at least in my opinion so far this season, TJ Malone. He was 4th in the league in points, which is insane because he was the 3rd option on his attack line. They've got Matt Rambo and Zedd Williams, but somehow TJ Malone, despite being the 3rd option, is 4th in the league in points. This guy had an amazing season. 37 points in this season, 3.7 per game. He had 19 goals, 18 assists, and shot 25%. It just keeps going with these amazing players. Next up, we got Brennan O'Neill, who is the most glazed player, I think, in the entire PLL. They absolutely love him. He's getting the LaMelo Ball, the Ben Simmons treatment when those guys were rookies. Constant media coverage, constant posts about him on Instagram. Yes, he's amazing. No, he's not winning Rookie of the Year. He still played great. He still had a very impressive season. Can't take that away from him. He finished 12th in the entire league in points, 29 points in total. He picked up 17 goals, 2 2-point goals, and had 8 assists. His shooting percentage is really what I think was holding him back. It took him a while to settle in and get used to the flow of the PLL offense. He only shot 23% this season. And finally, last but not least of these rookies, we got Connor Schellenberger, also of the New York Atlas. He was all the way down at 15th in points for the season. Yeah, all the way down. He scored 26 points in total. That came from 15 goals and 11 assists with an ultra efficient 43% shooting percentage. Really impressive. This was a crazy close competition. I really didn't know who to pick. I mean, I do, but it was tough to snub some of these guys out of considering them the best rookie of the year. Once again, all these guys had amazing seasons. Personally, I'm gonna have to go with TJ Malone, and I also think the PLL will agree with my selection and select TJ Malone as the rookie of the year. His instant adaptation to the pro game, as well as the fact that he really just fits in nice and snug into that Whipsnakes team, didn't need to force himself to get going. He kind of just gets his points, does his job within the flow of the game. It's really great watching TJ play. That's why he's my selection. That's why I think the PLL will go with him. But I wouldn't be surprised if the PLL go with Brennan O'Neill, because like I said, they glaze that guy super heavy. He probably deserves it, but it's a little much sometimes. Next up, we got the Hard Hat Award, which is basically the short stick D Middie of the year award. Only 3 D Middies got selected as nominations, which I think is crazy. There are so many crazy talented short stick D Middies in this league who produce too. And I think there was a lot of snubs. I'm gonna list a bunch of the guys who I think should have been on this list. Obviously, having a ton of guys as like finalist nominations isn't gonna work. Only 3. I think there should have been at least 5 guys nominated. Anyway, the real nominations here were Zach Geddes, Danny Logan, and Ryan Tarafanko. And the snubs, in my opinion, all guys who could have been included on this list super easily: Christian Scarpello, Bubba Fairman, Zach Goodrich, Brian Telvin, Jake Witcher, Ian McKay, Jeff Trainer, and there's even more. Holy crap, this league is stacked with D Middies. I'm not gonna list the stats for the final nominations because I think that'd be a little unfair for D Middies. It's not a position where you're looking to go get stats, and the stats really that do exist for this position just don't really do it justice. It's much more about grit. It's much more about willing your team to win, putting in effort, having energy, being an engine of your team. Of these 3 guys, I will compare their play styles though. Danny Logan is much more of the best defender out of these 3. He's just gonna lock dudes down. He certainly can be a bit of a two-way guy, but he's more concerned with just beating the hell out of you and making sure you're not getting past him. Ryan Tarafanko out of these 3 guys is the best two-way guy. He's super great on defense, but can also push transition. He's got a couple 2-point goals to his name. He can score when he wants to, make a nice assist. He can even be an O-Middie really if he was on a like rough team with not a lot of depth, but he, in this case, he's a D Middie. Finally, Zach Geddes, he's the best athlete of these guys, at least in my opinion. He's obviously really strong, but he's super fast as well, very quick, but his straight line speed is not to be messed with. At the end of the day, however, it's really tough to pick one guy, so I'm actually gonna pick 2, which really means that I'm only just excluding one guy. It's not Geddes. Whoever wins this, it can't be Geddes. He's great, but I don't think he played to the level that Danny Logan and Ryan Tarafanko did this year. I really can't pick between them. What I do have a strong opinion on is who I think the PLL will pick. I think they'll definitely go with Ryan Tarafanko. There's a lot of hype around the Denver Outlaws being back in pro lacrosse this year, and I don't see any other Denver Outlaws player winning an award so far, so I think they'll throw the Outlaws a bone, throw their fan base a bone, and give it to Ryan Tarafanko just so they have some sort of PLL end of the year award to have to their name. That's just my opinion, of course. Moving on, we got the Brody Merrill LSM of the year. I'm not sure if you guys knew this, but Michael Earhart actually won every single one of these awards in previous years. Seriously, he's like a 4 or 5 time straight winner. He only is not going to be the winner this year because dude retired. Yes, he was so great that the only way you could take this award off him was that he had to retire. I really do miss him. None of these LSMs are even close to as good as that guy was. He definitely could have played one more season and definitely would have won this award again if he wanted to. However, we got to pick someone new this time, and we're going to start with the first nomination, Tyler Carpenter, who's also a rookie. Like I said before, he is #1 in the league for ground balls, excluding the face-off athletes. 6 caused turnovers, 7 points, 2 goals, 2 2-point goals. Jared Connors was #4 of non-face-off athletes in terms of ground balls. He had 33 of them. He rounds out his season statistics with 4 caused turnovers, 3 points, 2 goals, and 1 assist. And finally, Ethan Rawl of the Boston Cannons. He was #7 besides face-off guys in terms of ground balls. He had 29, 12 caused turnovers, which is the most of these 3 finalists, and 2 points, which came from 1 goal and 1 assist. Finally, this guy wasn't mentioned on this list, but I think he should have been like an honorable mention. I really think he was snubbed. Just include 4 finalists, come on. But Jake Paisino, definitely deserves a shout. In my opinion, he doesn't deserve to win it, but he should be at least a nomination. My personal pick for the LSM of the year has to be the rookie Tyler Carpenter. I just can't get over the fact that he is a rookie leading the league in ground balls besides the face-off guys. I'm gonna stop saying that because that doesn't need to be said. That's kind of obvious that the face-off guys will be number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. Besides being an absolute vacuum, maybe the best we've ever seen in terms of being a winger, just trying to corral that ground ball. Plays pretty good defense. He definitely is dynamic on offense. I think he had something like 200 points in high school with a long pole, which is nuts. Obviously, I made a whole separate video about that. But being number 1 in ground balls on the best team, also being dynamic on offense, I think that's enough, in my personal opinion, to take home the LSM of the year. The competition really wasn't that good this year. I'm kind of sad as a long pole myself. Not a lot of big name long poles anymore. We had guys like Kyle Hartzell, Michael Earhart, Joel White, Scott Radliff, and more. All those guys are gone now, and no one really filled that void. It's kind of depressing. I also think that the PLL will select Tyler Carpenter to be the LSM of the year. The only way he doesn't win this is if they crash out of the playoffs, but I'm pretty sure they actually give these awards out before the Atlas will even be playing. So I think Tyler Carpenter 100% takes this home. So moving on, we have the face-off athlete of the year with 3 very, very familiar faces on this finals list. We all know, we all love, of course he's gonna be here, it's inevitable, Trevor Baptiste, the GOAT. Maybe he's at least climbing the ranks, that's for sure. It's between him and Greg. He has won this award 4 times already in the past, which is ridiculously impressive, of course. And this season was a slight, maybe 1% fall off for him in terms of performances. During the middle of the season, he actually got bested a few times by the other guys on this list, which I think wasn't really his fault necessarily. It looked like he was carrying a bit of a knock into some of those games. He had some sort of like slightly haggling injury. Either way, statistically, he still put up a ridiculous season. He went 66% in total from the face-off X. He had 174 face-off wins, 109 ground balls, 5 goals, and 1 assist, getting involved on the offensive end as well. You really can't say enough about Trevor Baptiste, so I'm just gonna say as little as possible, and we're gonna move right on to TD Erlin, who's on my California Redwoods. TD probably had the best professional season of his career thus far. We all know just how good he was back in college, playing for pretty much every team on the planet back then, but he really put the cherry on top of his career here, finally having that outstanding season in the professional league. He went 60% through the entire season, had 143 face-off wins, 81 ground balls, and 4 goals. Finally, the second best face-off guy in the PLL for the last however many years, really since the league had been created, Joe Nardella, who was the 2020 winner of this award, the only man who has beaten Trevor Baptiste in the PLL to win this so far. That was back in the bubble. Joe Nardella did play 1 less game than the other 2 guys, so his total numbers are going to look a little bit worse than they actually are. He went 67.5% from the face-off X, so the best of any player so far this season. He had 164 face-off wins. If he played that extra game, he would be on pace to also be number 1 in that category. 93 ground balls, 5 goals, and really, this is a really tough one to pick. As much as I love TD Erlin, this is genuinely between Trevor Baptiste and Joe Nardella, but there's not that much that sets these guys apart. Nardella did best Baptiste when they played each other, but their stats are so similar. Nardella's only 1.5% above Baptiste through the whole season, and who knows, if he did play that other game, would he have been above Trevor Baptiste in terms of the ground ball number and the face-off win percentage? Probably. That's what his averages indicate, but we will never know that. So my personal pick for the face-off athlete of the season, like I said, super tough. I actually am going to go with Joe Nardella for no other reason than the fact that he was just slightly more consistent. He didn't have that mid-season lull that Trevor Baptiste had. Whether it was because of injuries or not, doesn't matter. It still happened. So he was slightly more consistent, and when they did play, Nardella got the best of him. I also feel like Nardella is just a little bit more skilled when it comes to shooting, scoring, passing the ball, things like that. He's a little bit more athletic too. Not to say that Trevor's not athletic, he definitely is, but he does look a little, I don't want to say fat, but he looks a little bigger, like slightly unathletic when he's moving. He's very athletic, he's very quick, very fast, very strong, but Nardella looks a little bit better. My prediction for who will actually win this award, for who the PLL will actually pick, is probably the GOAT Trevor. He's amazing, and this is so neck and neck. I could surely see him winning it again. It'd be amazing PR for the PLL to have a 5-time winner, but who knows, realistically, I'd be happy with either of the guys winning it. They're both incredible. As long as it's not TD, even though I'm a Redwoods fan, I think those two deserve it a lot more. Next up, we got the Goalie of the Year award, and this isn't just like a runaway affair like it has been in seasons past. There were quite a few goalies who had incredible seasons this year, and it also helps to make this award a little bit more competitive that Blaze got injured for a little bit during the season. So let's go through some of the finalists. We actually have 4 of them here. First off, we got Brett Dobson. He put up 57.5% save percentage on 147 saves, 14.7 saves per game, 11.1 goals allowed, and he even had an assist on the season to round that out with a little bit of offensive action. Liam Entman, the rookie, who only played 6 games, so almost half of what the rest of these guys played. Even so, he had a 58.7% save percentage, which is the second best in the entire league, right behind Blaze. He had 71 saves, which once again, he only played 6 games, 11.8 saves per game, and only 11.1 goals allowed per game. If Liam Entman got the whole season to play and he was able to settle in a little bit quicker, he really might have won this award. I'm going to spoil it for you guys. He's not my personal selection, but he easily could have been if he played the whole season. I'm keeping an eye on him for next year. He might be an absolute shoo-in to win this. Next up for the Boston Cannons, we got Colin Kirst, who put up 53.8%, which is the worst of anyone who was a finalist for this nomination. Did, however, have a nice 129 saves, 12.9 saves per game, and 11.4 goals allowed. Out of any of these goalies, I actually enjoy watching Colin Kirst the most. Definitely passes the eye test the best. I don't know what it is about him, but it always looks like on every single save, he's just going all out. Maybe he's a little bit flashy. Maybe it's the funky way he wears his sweatpants. He's always running out for the missed shots, trying to get to the end line first. He's not afraid to come out of his net. He's not afraid to shake and bake a little bit on the clears. And yeah, when I'm just watching him, I do feel like he's better than Blaze. Watching the stats, which is pretty relevant to the goalie position, do completely say that Blaze is better, but just watching him, I think he's a little more enjoyable. And of course, I keep talking about him, Blaze Rudin. Obviously, he's on this list. He only played in 8 games total. 2 of the games that he did play and got cut short. So you got to keep that in mind when looking at these numbers, because that makes it even more impressive. Because he really only got 6 full games, and then like 2 more games when I only played like half of them. He had the best save percentage in the league, 59.4%. 92 saves in total, 11.5 saves per game, and a league best 9.8 goals allowed. He had 2 assists on the season and 1 goal. Yeah, the goalie had 3 points. That's nuts. This one is super close, so I'm just gonna go through a process of elimination here. We're gonna eliminate Entman simply because he didn't play as many games as the rest of these guys, so I feel like it'd be a little bit unfair to pick him. I'm also going to eliminate Colin Kirst because of the fact that he had the lowest save percentage, which is probably the most important stat when it comes to judging a goalie. So that leaves it between Blaze Rudin and Brett Dobson. Blaze has a better save percentage and the lowest goals allowed in the league. So personally, I am gonna have to go with Blaze Rudin being #1 in the league on 2 of the most important stats when it comes to being a goalie. I'm gonna cut him some slack for the games that he missed because of the fact that he was even playing through injury. He racked up these stats while being hurt, while missing time, while not playing full games, and that makes it, in my opinion, even more impressive. I think the league is also gonna agree with me and they'll give it to Blaze. Finally, we are at a point in the video where we are getting to the main field awards: Defensive Player of the Year, Middie of the Year, Attackman of the Year, and big one, MVP. We're going to start off close defense, best defender of the year. First off, from the Atlas, Gavin Adler. He actually set the single season record for caused turnovers for an Atlas player. He had 19 caused turnovers, which is good enough for 2nd in the league overall, right behind another player we're going to talk about in a minute. To go along with those 19 caused turnovers, he had 16 ground balls as well. And Adler's one of those guys who, when I'm watching him, he's pretty quiet. I don't really see him that much. I don't really think about him, but when you're a close defender, that's kind of the best thing that could possibly happen. If you don't get noticed, that means you're locking up your man. They're not calling on your name. They're not calling on the matchup's name. You're just negating everything that they have to do. So that is a big compliment for him, the fact that I haven't noticed him. Next up, from the Whipsnakes, Matt Dunn is on this list. He won this award in 2020. Like I said earlier in the video, he's got all the qualities you want from a long pole, close defender. He's that quarterback. He's that field general, organizing things on the defense, that Ray Lewis role. He's another guy who's not worried too much about pushing transition, making flashy plays, flashy takeaway checks. He is just going to sit there, organize his defense, and make sure you get nothing going. Even so, he finished the season with an impressive 11 caused turnovers, 13 ground balls, 2 goals, and 2 assists, which is kind of crazy. He also locked up a lot of the league's best players. In fact, the Whipsnakes Instagram posted this stat brought to us by Joe Keegan. Apparently, when matched up with some of the league's best players, Matt Dunn locked him down. So let's look at a couple of these. He held Ashton Lothing to be 1 for 10, Kieran McCardle to be 1 for 8, Josh Byrne 0 for 6, Rob Pennell 0 for 5, Jeff T 0 for 4, and Brennan O'Neill also 0 for 4. So This guy's locking dudes down. They posted the numbers to back that up. Shout out Joe Keegan for the stats. Next up, last year's winner. He was on the Redwoods at the time, but this year on the Boston Cannons, Garrett Epple put up a monster stat line in terms of close stick defenders. He had 20 calls to turnovers, which is good enough for number 1 in the league. Also matched that with an even 20 ground balls as well. He's a beast. We all know how good Garrett Epple is. We've been watching him for so many years at the highest level in lacrosse. I don't think I need to really explain much about Garrett Epple to you guys. Finally, to round out the 4 guys selected on this list, we have JT Giles-Harris, who locked it down for the Denver Outlaws. He plays a similar role as Matt Dunn does for the Whipsnakes, but I feel like he's a little bit more athletic than Matt Dunn for sure, a little bit better with his stick, and I mean like a little bit. Even though Matt Dunn put up some points this year, which is kind of crazy. That's not really his play style. But JT finished with 9 calls to turnovers and 15 ground balls, and that leads me to a massive, probably the biggest snub in any of these awards. Where in the world is Graham Hossack on this list? You've got to be kidding me. I know he only played 6 games, but so did Liam Menton. He's on the list. Blaze Reardon played like, I don't know, 6.5, 7 games. He's still on the list. Where is Graham Hossack? In my opinion, he is the number 1 defender in the league, the best guy in the league. Now, I know it's a bit of a slow start because he missed the beginning of the season and then took a game or 2 to settle back in, but come on, at least put him on the list, damn. Anyway, my personal pick here definitely has to be the big man, Garrett Epple. He's so mean, he's so intimidating, he's so strong and stout. You can't get past him. He's gonna beat the hell out of you legally, at least this year, because in the past, he had real problems with being a hothead, getting a lot of penalties, getting a lot of nasty hits, suspensions, things like that. He really cleaned up his act this year. He didn't get that many penalties, and the penalties he did get weren't these like ridiculous Jack Rowlett style of almost killing someone penalties. They were, you know, just kind of normal lacrosse penalties, at least for the most part. He definitely passes the eye test, and he's everything you could want from a long pole. He definitely does not get involved in transition or on offense whatsoever, but it's not really what you need necessarily out of your best defender in the league, so that's what I'm going with. I think the PLL is also going to rock with that pick of Garrett Epple. I don't think there's really a big argument to include anyone else. If there is one other guy who could win it, it's Matt Dunn, but I think Garrett Epple will take back-to-back wins of this award. Getting to the flashy offensive awards here, the midfielder of the year, and some interesting selections here. I do agree with the selections, but it's just kind of interesting to see how the season played out and who ended up here. First of all, of the Atlas, Dox Aiken, who had the least impressive season out of any of these finalists, at least from a stats point of view. He was a huge part of their team, of course, balancing out their stacked attack line and drawing most of the attention from midfield. He finished up this season with 16 points. He had 15 goals and only 1 assist, which is pretty funny. Shoot or shoot, I guess. He also had 16 ground balls, which is pretty impressive for an offensive midi, and shot a pretty efficient 30.6%. Next up, Grant Amon of the Archers, which is still weird to refer to this guy as a midfielder. He was number 1 of all midfielders in terms of points this year, which as a natural attackman is super impressive. He had a total of 28 points, 15 goals, and a nice balanced 13 assists. 9 ground balls for him, not very impressive, but that's not really his play style. And he shot a pretty efficient 33.5%. Just crazy to me that this guy is probably one of the top 3 attackmen in the league, but he got pushed to midfield this year and statistically had the best season out of any of them. Another guy who really impressed this year, who is definitely a natural midi, but he hasn't really had as good of a season as he had this year, Matt Campbell. Best pro season of his career, easily. He finished with 25 points, 9 goals, 5 2-point goals, which is 3rd in the league in terms of 2-point goals, 6 assists, and 13 ground balls. He shot 27.5%, and of course, was a big reason of why the Cannons were playing great this season. They got a lot out of Matt Campbell, because he was honestly not only just an offensive midi, but he was a good 2-way guy for them too. He would stay on the field for them a lot. Next up, we have the 2021 winner of this award, Zach Currier, in my opinion, the best player on the Waterdogs. He completely stuffed the stat sheet this season, not just in terms of the offensive metrics, but also the defensive metrics. This guy, in my opinion, is easily the best 2-way player in the league, and it's not even close. He finished the season with 19 points, 10 goals, and 7 assists, which at surface value doesn't look that impressive for a midfielder. How did this guy make the finalist for the midfielder of the year when he only had 19 points? Well, it's probably got something to do with the fact that he had 34 ground balls and 13 caused turnovers. The 34 ground balls makes him the number 1 player in terms of ground balls who's not a face-off guy or an LSM, which is ridiculous. And that caused turnover metric puts him in 5th place, not just of short sticks, not just of, you know, non-defenders, something like that. Overall, of anyone in the league, 5th place in caused turnovers as a short stick 2-way midi who's mainly known for his offense but can do it all. Get the fuck out of here. And if that wasn't crazy enough, this man also shot 44%, which for someone who shoots volume and is actually relied upon to make some offense, I'm pretty sure that's the best number in the league. If it's not my number 1, it's like 2 or 3. Ridiculous by Zach Currier. Final person on this list is the man, the GOAT of midfield, probably. It's kind of tough to call him the GOAT when Paul Rabil exists and some of the Gates. He's really good, at least the GOAT recently. He is a 4-time winner of this award, looking to make it 5. He had probably his worst season so far in the PLL, but the worst season for him is still incredible. He had 27 points, which is second for Middie's, only second behind his teammate Grant Ament. He finished with 10 goals and 15 assists, 9 ground balls, and 2 caused turnovers. Not nearly as efficient as Zach Currier, only shooting 22%. We all know how good Tom Schreiber is. He passes the eye test, he gets the stats, he's amazing. However, at the end of the day, my personal pick has to be, if you couldn't tell already from the rant I went on for him, Zach Currier, the Swiss Army knife. He's just so dynamic. The fact that he is number 5 in caused turnovers as a defender, and even that, if we were putting him only in the list for defensive players for the close defender finalists, he would be 3rd on that list, and he has more than any of the LSM finalists. As a shorty, get out of here. Nuts. He's locked in for me. However, I have a slight feeling that the PLL won't select Zach Currier because he doesn't have as many offensive stats as Grant Ament or Matt Campbell. I think they're going to go with one of those two. Ament's been playing great and seamlessly transitioned to midfield. Campbell has been a huge piece for the Cannons team, doing it all. He's a bit of a long shot, and I feel like they probably would favor going with a sexy pick, Grant Ament, over Matt Campbell. My pick, Zach Currier. I think the PLL might go with Grant Ament, though. So now it's time to talk about the always highly contested Attackman of the Year award, which is where most of the points, most of the offensive talent comes from in this league. So many amazing seasons from every single one of these guys on this list. This is a super tough decision to make, probably the most closely contested on any of these awards besides that Rookie of the Year award. First up, Marcus Holman, the vet. He climbed up the all-time leaderboards this season, broke a couple records too. He finished the season with a total of 32 points, which came from 22 goals, 3 2-point goals, which is tied for 5th in the league, and only 4 assists, which is really interesting. I feel like Marcus Holman always gets a lot more than that, but only 4 assists. He's got a lot more of a scoring role, but I guess that makes sense when you're playing right next to Asher Nolting. He shot 32% from the field. Let's move on to Asher Nolting. His teammate just mentioned him. He finished 2nd in points overall in the entire league with 39. Very impressive. He only had 11 goals, but was 2nd in the league with 28 assists. He shot 26% as well. Great season for Asher. He's been playing really good ever since he's gotten in the league, but this was really his breakout year in terms of being one of the best. The Waterdogs attackman Michael Sowers finished with 37 points this year. Very impressive, getting him 3rd place of all players. He had 18 goals and 19 assists, shooting 29%. Super exciting. Always love watching Sowers. He always gets the crap kicked out of him, but he doesn't care. We've also got Jeff T, who is having probably the best season I've ever seen out of an attackman, if we're being real. He scored 64 points this season. The next closest to him, which was Asher Nolting in 2nd place, has 15 less points. That is nuts. He had 28 goals and 36 assists, and he was efficient too. It's not just like he was chucking up shots and trying to just go for volume. He had 35% of his shooting percentage too. Incredible season for Jeff T. I'm kind of going to gloss over him. We'll talk about him more in the MVP conversation. Finally, last nominee for the Attackman of the Year, Zedd Williams, 31 points, 26 goals, which is the 2nd most goals of any player this season, and only 3 assists. Definitely scorer. Same goes for him as goes for Marcus Holman. Shoot. He was pretty efficient too, 34% shooting percentage. Before I tell you guys who I would pick to win this award, I do feel like TJ Malone, Kieran McCardle, and Connor Fields were definitely snubbed, but I kind of get it. We already have 4 or 5 amazing players as finalist nominees for this award, so I get we can't pick everyone. It's fine. In another year, in another universe, maybe those guys snuck onto this list. They had great seasons too. Just wanted to shout them out. But my personal pick is going to be Marcus Holman. That's right, I did not pick Jeff T. Spoiler alert, it's because I'm picking him from MVP, and I just don't want to pick him twice. Sorry, I spoiled it, but you knew it was coming. Come on. And I also picked Marcus over his teammate Asher Nolting, who technically had a better season, but I don't know. I don't like the way Asher plays for some reason. He gets the stats, but I cannot ignore the fact that Holman has such a higher skill level than Asher Nolting. Holman definitely relies a lot on his size, on his body, and he knows how to use it really well, of course, but I gotta go with the guy who's more skilled, the guy who's been the vet. He's definitely the leader of the team and not Asher Nolting. And he's still got a great all-around game. He's an absolute sniper. He can finish inside, outside, mid-range. He can pass. He just hasn't this season because Nolting does that. He's gritty. He's efficient. He'll get his hands dirty. He's not afraid to take a hit. I really love Holman. He played great this season. And I didn't really like him until this year too, but he proved something to me this year. He got me on his side. And my prediction for who the PLL will pick, I think if they don't go with Jeff T, which they might be thinking the same as me, they're definitely gonna give him the MVP, so they might not want to double up and give him Attackman of the Year too. I think they might go with Asher instead. He's second in points total. He's second in assists. He did really well for his team. He was a big reason why they had a great year this year, and I feel pretty confident about those picks. So we're making it to the end of the video. If you guys have made it this long, please hit the like button. It helps me out a lot, and if you made it this long, well, you definitely like the video, so you might as well just like the video. So let's go through some of these guys. I've already given you the stats for most of them, but I'm gonna run through it one more time real quickly again. First option, Asher Nolting, 39 points, good enough for second in the league. 11 goals, 28 assists, also good enough for second in the league. 26% shooting. Next, Tom Schreiber, Utah Archers, 27 points, second most in Middies. He's got 10 goals, 15 assists, 9 ground balls, 2 cause turnovers, shot 22%. Blaze Reardon, the goalie, he played only in 8 games, which is really more like 6.5 to 7 games because he left a couple games early. Anyway, he prevented 59.4% of shots on goal. He had 92 saves on the season, 11.5 saves per game, with the least goals allowed out of any goalie, 9.8 per game. He had 1 goal and 2 assists as a goalie. Obviously, that's ridiculous. Finally, this is where I'll talk about him in depth. Jeff mother effing T, the man. He scored 64 points this season. The next closest guy had 15 less than him. I already said that. He's had the single season record this year for points, and he set it halfway through the season. Do you understand how crazy that is? Come on, man. Like, it's not fair. This guy was on a whole different level. He had all the sliders turned up this season. I've never seen anything like it. If you took away every single one of his goals, I think he still would have been, what, at least top 3 in points if you only looked at his assists. Get the hell out of here. Of course he's the MVP. 35% shooting percentage too. He did it efficiently. My God, I've never seen anything like this in terms of lacrosse. Besides Jeff T in college. So obviously my prediction, and also who I can pretty much guarantee, actually not even pretty much, I can guarantee you the PLL is going to give Jeff T the MVP. Nobody has a chance. He broke all sorts of record. #1 in a bunch of things. Broke the single season record halfway through the season. Made it look too easy. He's level above the rest. Passes the eye test. He's unselfish. Constantly makes it look like the other team's asleep because he's so good. He's just that good. It doesn't come close. And now with this already, give him the damn MVP. Whew. All right. That is it. I just ran through every single one of these awards. This is probably gonna be a long video, but please, I want this to be a little bit more of a discussion. I want to hear who your guys' picks are for these awards. Give me the whole list. Why not? Tell me every single thought you have on every single one of these awards, all the nominations. Most of all, what I really want to hear is who is snubbed from this list. PLL has so much talent, it's ridiculous. So who didn't make it? Who did I not even mention today? Or who didn't make it on the list? Let me hear it, guys. Anyway, that's all for me. Thank you very much for sticking around all the way to the end of this video. If you guys like this video, check out the rest of my channel. We've got tons of coverage on the PLL. Check me out on Instagram and TikTok. We're posting a ton of funny plays, little clips, little snippets from every game this season, interesting things that I saw that I wanted to share with you. If you love lacrosse, if you love the PLL, give it a follow, give it a subscribe. Thank you guys very much. Have a good day.